guys, thanks for joining us today. That is Leia, our aardvark. She's having a bit of an outing today while the zoo's closed. So we really appreciate you guys joining us today. We certainly miss our visitors around here. So hopefully you guys get to enjoy meeting Leia. Some of you may have never seen her before. She's not actually on exhibit because she's an animal ambassador. She's an animal we work with very closely. And we bring her to interact with people in a slightly different way than the animals you may see on exhibit. And what you guys see her enjoying right now is actually avocado. Just like it's a nice healthy fat for humans, the same goes for aardvarks. Also helps to keep her skin nice and healthy as well. You guys will see her tongue moving around quite a bit. That is one of their best weapons when it comes to eating. It's actually covered in a lot of sticky saliva, so it's helping her pick up that avocado no problem. Something else you may notice about her are her really large ears. They do have excellent hearing. Being a nocturnal animal, eyesight isn't all that important. But something else those ears help with, which you can see how vascularized they are, is actually thermoregulation. So being an animal from Africa, it can get very warm in the regions they're native to. So those big ears that have lots of veins running through them actually help to control their body temperature a little bit better. And you guys will see as she explores her surroundings, she's got a very awkward gait about her, and that's because they've got uneven legs. Their back legs and their front legs aren't exactly the same length. We might get to witness her being an actual aardvark here in a second if she decides to start digging.
Leia, target. Good. Up. Good.
And what you guys see here is Julie doing a couple of what we call husbandry behaviors with Leia. She's actually trained to touch the end of that tennis ball with her nose. And we can actually utilize that target behavior to help to get her to different locations without having to physically force or push her anywhere.
Target. Good. Get up. Good.
And that up behavior serves a lot of purposes. It actually helps us to look at her abdominal area that we can't see very well. And it also exposes a really big vein on the inside of her leg. And something we always try to do whenever we are performing any medical procedures on our animals is to keep them as stress-free as possible. So we can actually do routine blood work by accessing that vein right inside her leg. And all we do is give her lots of aardvark snacks while that's happening. And she usually doesn't even know that she's been poked and blood has been drawn by the end of the training session.
Okay, some questions here for you, Lindsay.
Sure.
So Aiden, who's 6, wants to know what Leia eats and what's her favorite food.
So in the wild, aardvarks eat termites mainly. They can actually eat as many as 60,000 termites in one evening. So they're really great for the environment and natural pest control. Here at the zoo, we do feed them a type of food that's called insectivore. It's actually made for animals that eat insects in the wild. And it contains all the nutrients she needs. Taylor, if you want to grab a little bit of food from Julie so we can show them. Put it in your hand. You can see this is what her food looks like. We actually moisten it with a little bit of water so that she gets lots of moisture content in her diet as well. But that contains all the nutrients she needs. And just additional nutrition we give her are the things like avocado. She also gets soft fruits, which she enjoys eating. But that insectivore is definitely her favorite type of food.
And then Penny, who's 4.5 years old, wants to know if she's soft and fuzzy because they look like it.
Oh, wow. That's a great question, Penny. And I hate to disappoint you, but she's definitely not something you'd want to cuddle with. She's got very coarse fur. She feels a bit more like a pig than soft dogs or cats.
And then Sidley, who's 4, wants to know how long her tongue is.
Oh, that's a great question. Her tongue is actually just under 12 inches. But do you guys know why it's not 12 inches? Because then it would be a foot.
Robin M wants to know if aardvarks have good hearing.
Aardvarks have excellent hearing, so they rely mostly on their sense of hearing and their sense of smell. So they don't have great eyesight, so to make up for it, they have excellent hearing.
And then Dylan, who's 7 years old, wants to know what are their predators in the wild.
So these guys have to worry about all of your large predators from Africa. So that would be things like lions, hyenas, African painted dogs. So animals like that. The big cats mostly. Adult aardvarks actually have some pretty good defense mechanisms. One of them being their ability to dig. They can move a lot of dirt in a very short amount of time. Sometimes their burrows being as long as 40 feet in length. But what they do whenever it's time to return to their burrows, in order to offer themselves extra protection, they close up the burrow with the back of their body. So they basically sleep in a ball every night, and the back of their body helps to prevent animals from breaching those burrows. So what you guys see here is Leia being a bit antsy for a little bit more food.
Target. Good.
So Julie's just trying to redirect her a bit. Just like at home, you don't want your dogs jumping on you. Same thing with an aardvark. She is a pretty large animal. She weighs about 90 pounds and she is solid muscle.
Good.
So can you explain a little bit why we're in photowalk?
Oh, sure. So we are certainly trying to make the most of our closed situation. And with that, we can actually bring a lot of our animal ambassadors to habitats they wouldn't normally visit. This is typically our goat and sheep area. Some of you guys may recognize it. It's where you come in to interact with our goats and sheep. The goats and sheep are getting a nice long break right now, and just to take advantage of a little bit of extra space where she can stretch her legs a bit more as well, we decided to bring her in here.
Target. Good.
Now, aardvarks in the wild are not considered endangered, but unfortunately their numbers are declining, and they're a very hard animal to study. They're very elusive. Again, they spend a lot of their time in burrows. So a good bit of what we know about these animals have actually been what we've studied in zoos. It's helped a great deal in learning more about their wild counterparts. And Leia's also a part of what's called an SSP, the Species Survival Plan. So her birth was a coordinated effort amongst AZA zoos throughout the United States. And she actually came to us from the Henry Dorley Zoo in Omaha, Nebraska. Really, really important that we keep a nice, healthy bloodline, because as their numbers decline in the wild, it will be important eventually to have nice, healthy specimens that we could reintroduce to the wild. A big problem that these guys are facing in the wild would be habitat loss. So we're clearing a lot of land as humans for things like agriculture, and unfortunately, these guys need a lot of that land. Like I mentioned, their homes can sometimes be as long as 40 feet. And needless to say, farmers do not like aardvarks digging on their property, so sometimes they will do some not nice things to get rid of aardvarks on their land. So you may be asking yourself at home, what can I do to help aardvarks? One of the biggest things is just reducing your consumption overall. And that goes for all things, food, plastic, you name it. The less we consume, the less we're creating demand for things like agriculture. Also, something that's really important in affecting Africa happens to be our electronics. You guys are probably all watching on a smartphone or possibly a tablet. Just keep in mind, if you don't need that latest upgrade, please, please, please make sure you hold on to your devices as long as you can. What you're helping to protect are animals like gorillas and other species from Africa that live in the mountain areas, where they actually mine things like coltan.
Follow.
So Maddox, who's age 3, wants to know how do they sleep?
It depends on the temperature. If it's a bit chilly outside, Leia likes to sleep completely curled up in a ball. But since she doesn't really have predators to worry about, she's pretty safe with us. She will sometimes sleep flat on her back.
And then Anna, who's age 5, wants to know how old can they get in the wild versus in human care.
So not a whole lot is known about their age in the wild. It's believed to be probably between 12 to 15 years in the wild. But here in protected care, they are living longer. They usually live mid to late 20s.
And then Stacy E wants to know how much does Leia weigh?
Leia weighs about 90 pounds. She's a very healthy girl.
Good.
So I wonder if you can talk a little bit about her feet, like her claws and stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So her front legs, if you were to actually look at her claws are all staggered because they make a perfect little shovel. And like I said, they can move dirt very quickly.
Leia.
She can move about 2 feet of dirt in as little as 15 seconds. So those front hands are built just like shovels. And then their back legs are really powerful. So what they do is they push the dirt with their front legs to their back, and then they just continue pushing out the dirt with their back legs. And they can kick it pretty far, which helps them to continue digging those deep burrows. Now, something that's really cool about aardvark burrows is they're very important for the survival of other species. What's interesting is I mentioned earlier that African painted dogs are actually a predator of these guys, but African painted dogs also live in their burrows, and that's one of the most critically endangered canines on Earth. So if we continue to lose animals like our aardvarks, who are actually creating homes for other animals, you'll very quickly see a decline in those other species as well. So they play a really important role in their environment. So you guys can see her digging a little bit. Something else you're going to see her doing is really flicking that nose around. They have an excellent sense of smell, so she's hoping she finds a termite mound somewhere in there. We'll be a bit disappointed if she does, because that's not good for the space, but that's all right. We'll let her get to work and eat. And you might also be able to see around her face, they have a lot of whisker-like hairs, and that basically helps them feel their way through burrows.
So I think the last question will be, when the zoo reopens, where can guests see Leia?
Yeah, so we have a feature throughout the week that we call Experience Africa. We usually have it every day, sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon. And she is one of the animals we feature. So it's in a space called Kukatana that's just inside the entrance to Africa. And we also randomly take her for walks. So be sure to check the Zoo Scoop when you guys visit the zoo, because it'll let you know when our Experience Africa programs are.
All right, I think about wraps it up. Thanks, Lindsay.
No worries. Thanks for joining us, guys.